because I have David Kepron, who is going to be our guest. He's going to be joining me in just a minute, and I see he's tuned in, so I got you all lined up over there. And for those of you who don't know David, he and I actually met a number of years ago at Color Marketing Group, where he was brought in to be a keynote speaker. His background is really an interesting and diverse background, but really focused on the retail experience. So he's a true expert in retail design and also in the way consumers' brains work. And you know what? We're all consumers. We all buy things. We all are interested in that. We make decisions about what things we want to purchase, what we want to surround ourselves with. And David has really spent his career digging into that. He is an author of a book called The Retail Revolution, which is available on Amazon, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. And his most recent stint was at Marriott Corporate, where he oversaw luxury design and worked with their teams as a vice president, really coming up with amazing creative new hotel experiences. And it was really fun because David got to take me, I went into the dungeon, into their sort of underground area where they do all these model rooms, all these new hotel ideas, and David led me through that. And he is starting a new chapter in his life. I was recently featured on his podcast. It hasn't launched yet, but he interviewed me, so that was fun. And I'm going to patch him in now, so let's welcome Mr. David Kepron.
Okay. You got no idea. I love technology, but I hate technology.
And I'm like, Mazel Tov, we did it. We did it.
Oh, my love. You know what? I'm going back to where I was, and let's hope that this works. Hi, everybody.
All right. So we have David with us. We got it. You know what? I always try to just talk it through. That's why I bring a cocktail half the time. So.
Now, you know what, Stacy? I apologize. I don't seem to be getting service in the area that I want to talk to you in.
All right, you know what? Go back to your office.
I'm going back to my office.
Cards, David. Okay, we have 29 eyeballs on. Almost 30, and getting hearts and love, and everyone's so excited to hear from you. So, meanwhile, while you're power walking, just take a deep breath and walk us through. Okay. Talk us about what's on your walls. Where are we? While we're here at Design Uncensored, talk us through where we are.
Well, right now you're in my office. In the bowels of my house. It's the basement office. It looks out into the backyard, which is all good. So this is actually terrific to do this. So.
All right. Well, you know what? We tried. Look at this. We got our color marketing group that just joined us. And
fantastic.
Someone was asking, David, where's your cocktail?
I had a cocktail, but while I was experiencing technical difficulties, I left it in my painting studio, which is really where I wanted to do this from. So
I know. Oh, that's a bummer. Okay, you know what? And it's funny. Well, you and I practiced in the office before.
Yeah, so this is good. So I got the right background. It's my collection of Japanese and Chinese artifacts from traveling around the world, which is great fun. So
all right. So take a deep breath. As I say to my children, we are here now.
We are.
We are here now. So, all right. So we take a breath. We start again. And talk to us. I'm so excited. I was telling our viewers about your backgrounds in the whole retail experience and, working with all different brands. Oh, somebody loves you.
Oh, you see, my wife. She's so free.
Magic. And she's a TV personality, everybody. So
she is.
You want to flip it around? Do we get to say hello, or she snuck out?
No, she comes in and out. She's like,
So what are you drinking? What's the cocktail?
This is just a little ginger beer and some other magic called vodka.
Oh, very nice.
Otherwise known as the Moscow Mule, I think is what it is.
That's a good one. I think that's good. Well, cheers. Enjoy. L'chaim.
You too.
So tell me, we were talking a little bit about, I was so excited because the whole landscape for retail has been changing. And we know this even pre-COVID. We've been witnessing this major shift in the way people purchase goods and services, sort of what our expectations are, how quickly we want to receive things, what level of service, what we're willing to compromise. All of it as consumers has been just drastically changed, obviously, with online shopping and e-com. But this whole pandemic, it was interesting because we work with different manufacturers and retailers really all over the country. And the drum we've been beating over the last handful of years has been that of experience, right? We've been sort of saying to the retailers, if you want people coming in, you have to create experience. It has to be memorable. You have to give people that that wow. You have to give them a reason to show up and get in their car and drive to your store and make the effort, because you can buy whatever you want with the swipe of a finger. So you really have to make it experiential.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
How does this, in your experience, because this is really what you've done for a career, how do you see something like this, a pandemic that we've, in our generation and really anybody's lifetime here has never lived through something like this? How do you think it's going to change the retail landscape at this point?
It's a great question, and there are like about 100 rabbit holes to go down, right?
Yeah.
In there, but let's choose just a couple. For starters, one, I think that if people are going to go wherever, if they're going to go to a hotel, a restaurant, a bar, a retail store, any place where they're going to engage in some sort of brand experience, they're making a conscious decision to engage in something that now might be considered risky. It's something that you might go out, you might get sick. I can tell you that when we go shopping, I'm the guy traditionally who goes out and does the grocery shopping these past days. So my wife has been joining me recently, which is great. Gives me someone to talk to there and back. But the first few times that I was in the store, I can tell you I was very nervous. I was walking around. I was looking at everybody. I didn't look at anyone in the eye. I sort of moved quickly past people. And so there was a palpable sense of anxiety about being in a public place where I was putting myself at risk. So I think as a go forward strategy, my expectation or my hope is that if people are going to take the risk of going out, that retailers or people who provide those kinds of branded experiences to their guests, goods or services, whatever it is, are going to have to up their game, because you're going to want to make sure you're going to deliver on people going there. It was becoming increasingly prevalent that you didn't have to go anyway, because you could go to Amazon, you could buy it, you could have it delivered to home. So that already was putting pressure, I think, on retailers or the makers of brand experiences to make sure that what they were doing in the store was enhancing the experience, was driving a deeper engagement, was providing a relationship based to something more than just the product, or the service that they were providing. So that I think is going to become increasingly more important, that retailers or providers of brand experiences will have to up their game.
Right.
From the
and
design
what do you do? Give us an example.
Yeah.
What do you do to up your game?
Well, so it's interesting, right? I think there was some articles written a few weeks ago about companies like Victoria's Secret, about American Eagle Outfitters, about people who were doing things that are clearly geared towards providing safe environments, where people can shop without having to worry about their health, right? But so there's fundamental things that are shifting in retail places, like, for example, the ubiquitous panty table or broad table in any Victoria's Secret. For them, it's a key item, feature presentation. The moment you walk in or walk by, it's there, and there's hundreds of units, right? So product density is a big thing there. Lots of choice, lots of selection, lots of colors and patterns. Well, now I think that the approach they're going at with is one. You don't need to have 50 of the same thing. Once you see the style and the colorway that you like, you engage in a relationship with a sales associate who helps you navigate the assortment and choose the things that you want to buy. I actually think that's smart. And it does parallel very clearly with online shopping, where you are looking through single units of merchandise. It may make up a collection, but you don't need to see 100 of them to know that you're getting a good deal. Buy 3 for the price of 1, or buy 3 get 1 free, or whatever it is. So I think that's also changing, but it's enhancing the way we think about design and product assortment and product display. Mm-hmm. Do you need to have that much in the store? Probably not. And I think part of that reason is because price point and unit count do not any longer drive brand differentiation. You're not gonna step out ahead of the next guy because you simply have more of it, whatever it is. Yeah. In fact, I think it's quite diverse.
And I was going to say, here we have an interesting question over here from one of my friends. What if I'm afraid of the sales associates' germs? They're saying. So I think there's, like you said, it's interesting because what you're bringing up, it reminds me almost of a throwback. The description of, okay, instead of hundreds of units of product, hundreds of SKUs of it's the same panties, it's, the same thing in 82 different sizes on a round table. It's one item, and then you're engaging, like you said, with the sales associate to say, okay, we have this in 5 other colors. Let me go into the back and bring it for you so that people aren't flying through inventory. You're not worried about people touching things. Very much, it reminds me of the 40s and the 50s when people would go out to the store and the whole experience was a really interactive with the associate, truly selling you through the items, selling you through the store. But I think it is going to be sort of different right now, at least in terms of, face coverings for associates and things like that.
Yeah, I suspect that people will be quite anxious about interacting with other people, face to face, doing the hand-to-hand combat of being in a store where you have to sort of fight off the sales associate and just do things on your own. It sort of brings a whole new meaning to that engagement. And so I think my sense is that as we begin to move through this and people are having a sense of comfort and trusting that at least throughout the whole store that retailers are taking or mindfully creating experiences that are focused on health, that you're also assuming that the people who are serving you are under the same set of restrictions. Like when I go to my favorite grocery store, everyone's wearing a mask, everyone's wearing gloves. Every time I walk in, they're spraying the shopping carts down. And so I think through those overt kinds of telegraphing or messaging that we take health seriously, you can't get in a Trader Joe's unless you're wearing a mask. Right. And the first time I went there, I was very worried about that. And I called home my wife and said, hey, look, I'm showing you the pictures. They won't even let you in unless you're wearing a mask. So I think things are okay. Is there a risk? Sure. Is there a risk that's being mitigated by retailers taking those proactive steps to make sure that their sales associates are maintaining, cleanliness rituals, washing their hands? They should be doing that anyway. The good thing is, I think, that when you look at industries like hospitality was in a dire need for a health and wellness, and cleanliness makeover, right?
You think?
For years and years and years, we would go into hotels and I'd just tell my kids, get off the carpet, get off the carpet. And I think this has really upped that requirement. And so there's an expectation set driven by customers that will begin, I think, to shift the way people design, the way they maintain, the way they engage their guests, in the experience when they're there. And I think that's great. And I think it's always, and I think this is a ubiquitous change across brand experience industries in multiple segments, that the customer will begin to drive in stores or because they are empowered to do that more now than they've ever been before.
Yeah. So I guess that's the question is there even a future, for kind of being in stores? Do you see that people are going to still go into a brick and mortar experience,
Well, they are now.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't think that has gone away. I think the desire to go and to be in socially, meaningful relationships with the brand and or people who are representatives of the brand will continue. I think that is always something that has been core to sort of our social, our cultural, experience.
Yeah.
I don't think that goes away. What I think changes, or many of, I'm going to call them bad habits, I think they go away. And I think we change our behavior. I think about pre 9/11, we never walked through security in the way that you did at the airport. And we didn't, I think initially there was a lot of resistance and sort of frustration about having to stand in the security line. But I think that sense that we had to now do this as part of the standard way we were going to engage in an experience just became commonplace, and so we adapted to that. And I think that'll be the same thing in all brand experiences.
I'm reading a comment here too from somebody who says that a new study just came out saying Americans are the unhappiest they've been in 50 years. How do you think this period of isolation can be met by designers of customer experience to cultivate a sense of connection and joy? So that's a great question. Thank you. So how do we do that? How do we create that sense of not only, that experience of connectedness and joy, but like you said, I think it's like anything else. to your point, after 9/11, having that sense of security became the cost of doing business if you wanted to be in the travel industry. Today, it's going to be having that sense of security that your health is being put first, that measures are being taken. So that's going to be a cost of doing business, right? You're not going to be able to function in a store, in a retail environment, a restaurant environment as a provider if you're not doing the proper measurements and really clearly messaging that. But what's the next level? How do you really promote that connectedness?
I was hoping you were just going to go on because you were doing really well with the answer. Because that's great. It is true that, and I know the study, I think it was released just out of Chicago yesterday or the day before, that Americans are unhappy. I think they're unhappy, and I didn't read the article. I know of it because it came up in a discussion last night, actually. The part of that level of unhappiness also probably is the social disconnection.
Yeah.
Right? Probably the sense of isolation, the sense of uncertainty, the sense of vulnerability, to the invisible pathogen none of us can see, but we know is out there. Some of us, like myself and my wife, who's had a friend in ICU for 50 days, on a ventilator, on an ECMO machine, and you see that, and those things become very real when it gets very close to you. Friends who have been swept up in all kinds of things over the past few weeks. So I think one of the challenges about this too, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to answer the question directly, but I can think of ways where it'll be increasingly difficult to have that sense of comfort being in a place where most of your face is covered and you can't see. And I keep on saying to the cashier at my local grocery store, because that seems to be the only place I go now, can you tell I'm giving you the smiling eyes?
Right.
I'm smiling with my eyes. I hope you can see that. Part of what we know about the way people decode facial expressions and leads to our sense of comfort and an awareness of people's intent in the interaction is because of what they do on their face.
Right.
There's going to have to be a whole sort of level of development of EQ, right? Emotional intelligence in terms of people serving other people when you can't actually read any of the facial expressions, most of which, by the way, happen from here down.
Right.
And so that's going to be a real challenge. And I think a lot of companies will have to begin to engage in either talking about it, training people on it, so people are getting more focused on, and as my wife would talk about, being trauma informed. This is a traumatic time. This is a lot of people. Like I said, we have a friend who was a healthcare provider, sick, and thank God he's moving through after a long time of being on a ventilator. But there's a lot of inherent trauma in these things that are happening around us, and I think we're going to have to be more sensitive and aware of how people interact. And maybe we'll be more demonstrative in some ways, and not see masks as a sort of a political affiliation or an establishment of where I stand on political principles. It's a human principle, and I think being connected to that sort of mindset is we are all literally, in the case of the COVID world, in it together, regardless of where we live, what race we are, what religion we connect to, etc. So, but I'm aware of the idea that we're less happy, despite we might have been less happy even before COVID. But I think COVID has sort of pushed that into to the next level.
But I agree. I think that human interaction is a basic need, that desire, that need to even that human touch. I remember before my grandmother, I have one, which is a blessing, who's still alive, and the other one who passed a couple years ago, and she was in her 90s, lived alone, and then had an aide who would, basically be there with her 7 days a week. But the aide's not hugging and kissing and touching and holding her hand. So she said, one of the things she really missed the most was that just that human touch. She really craved it. She missed it when her grandchildren would see her children would come visit. She would, have that, to hold on to. It's why so many people, they say it's healthy to have a pet. That there's something in your life. But I do think that it's interesting because I think the retailers and restaurants and hospitality industry that can figure out how to, like you said, pull people out, how to engage them, how to give them almost that form of escapism. I was watching, I actually just booked it for Saturday, so I'm excited about it. There's a restaurant who's owned by friends of ours called Brownstone Pancake Factory. And it was a cool restaurant anyway. It was one of these things that does these like mega milkshakes with the donuts on top, So that alone was highly Instagrammable.
Everyone needs that.
Very cool.
Waffle with chocolate sauce.
Right. But what they did, which is I think was really sparked by COVID because people couldn't be in the restaurant, is they said rather than just takeout, they started taking reservations for car delivery, ordered a whole bunch of those retro trays, and their servers are on roller skates. And they fully took this on super retro, and I want to say maybe once a week they put up a blow up. Sorry, that's the dog.
There's your dog.
I
was going to say, you have a dog.
I do, yeah. Blow up, theater, and they do a drive-in, at the Brownstone Pancake. Really cute, but I was excited when I saw it because it was all right, that's something where I have the safety of my car, but now I'm providing an experience to my family.
This is actually interesting. I literally was just talking about this before getting on this call with a friend of mine about the idea that a shift in the retail paradigm, if you want to talk just about retail, it's a little easier. A hotel can't come to you so much at all, actually. But a retailer will I think, increasingly come to you as opposed to you going to them. Whether that's through Amazon or some other sort of vehicle. But many retailers now are shifting to that model and people are accepting it more. I think many things that might have been sort of living in the margin, not fully accepted quite as much, have been bumped now into everyday. Well, yeah, I mean...
Give me an example.
Well, I mean, I'd love to see numbers on how well Uber Eats is doing, and DoorDash, and Deliveroo, and those kinds of companies. There's a company and I'm drawing a mind blank on this, based in the Philadelphia area, where their original concept was always to give you recyclable containers for home products, soaps, those kinds of things. And then so they would deliver those things to your house, beautifully designed packaging, which is kind of cool. So it's got an aesthetic to it. It's not off the shelf, industrial design soap container. And then when that's done, you put it back in the package and ship it back to the country. They totally sterilize it and disinfect it, and they reship back to you. Those kinds of things. I'm doing things now where we're ordering more and having it delivered more than we ever have before, and saying, okay, that's just what we're going to do now. And I think the more we become familiar with those kinds of systems, there's this idea that it takes you about 30 days of repetitively doing something to change the neural network, the neural wiring, to sort of solidify that as a habit or as a change in your way of doing things. So I was writing in an Instagram post that given the fact that we think that COVID we won't have a vaccine for, let's say, in 18 months or more, that's a long time for us to practice new behaviors.
Right.
And to solidify those things that would have maybe otherwise taken longer or maybe not ever surfaced before, that now will become just the way that we do things and become more familiar with doing them that way.
Right. So which brings us then to e-com, right? I mean, everything's then going to shift over, like you said, to you order it on an app or you order it on a website and it shows up at your door. How do retailers who are really shifting their businesses online, how do they draw people in to choose that experience? How do they create an experience online?
The $64 billion question.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. I think if you look at the largest aggregator of products in the world, Amazon, you could argue that there's not a whole lot to the experience of Amazon, right? You need to be able to, search engine has to be really, killing. And so I got to be able to put 3 words and find the things. And then based on my shopping history, they're going to offer up options and or alternates. And that's just AI and machine learning that helps me sort of in the predictive analytics part. That's key. But also I think what happens there is Amazon has quite successfully commoditized most things that you would buy on Amazon, right? I mean, you're not buying it for the experience of the shopping experience. You're buying it because you think you can get it faster tomorrow and maybe for less money than you could actually get it at the retailer who will be selling it in your store. For all kinds of reasons that you can do that. So I think that's sort of one world. The shopping experience that is commodity driven doesn't need a whole lot of experience other than it's got to be easy and it's got to just sort of give me free shipping if I can get it. Then there's the other, which is trying to drive some experience through their site. And you and I were talking about this a little bit in a previous conversation, saying, I did work for L'Occitane, the Bath and Body Products company, a few years ago, and we developed a few prototypes for them in New York. And their original thing was, well, we're going to put up a big screen behind our cash wrapper. We're going to show people our Twitter feed about how many things people are tweeting about us that are so wonderful. And I said, people carry that in their hands. They don't need to do that. Well, really what we want to do is we want to push the idea of Provence, France. And I said, gosh, I may be wrong about this, but most of us in North America don't really know where Provence, France is. And maybe we should learn. That would be better. But maybe not as interesting. Maybe not as interesting as a story about the guy who made the lavender balm for you, right, who has the farm of lavender. And there's something unique about him getting up in the morning and going and looking at these fields of purple, and they're extraordinary. And there's a human story there that I think people can attach to much more readily than they can about a product story per se. And by the way, most of these products show up in stores and we have no idea where they come from.
Right.
We don't know the human content in the product packaging, right? And that took people to go and make shea butter from those nuts. It takes people to go and pick Immortelle and the yellow flower that L'Occitane does so well with. The same with lavender. And I said, if you told stories about people and you were showing that kind of content in your store, I think people would like that. They would connect to the human stories more than they would the product-based stories per se. Right. And I think that's the same thing when you see great web design and great sort of online experiences. They're great storytellers, and I think the story that you can tell through great visual content, whether it's like you on Instagram, and I keep on, by now I should have like 100 chairs in my house because of the chairs somehow that you show in every IG post that you do, right? I go, I like that chair, get that chair. So there's something about the sensual quality of great photography, which is great, a human story that makes sense. People are so like this geared towards video and moving pictures more so than they are, still photography. So those are things that you can do. And it's got to be navigable, if that's a word. And it's not unlike any store. The largest turnoff for most guests when they go anywhere is kind of navigating the menu. Don't really know how to do that. Trying to understand where in the hotel to go, like where's reception.
Right.
Store, where's the thing I want, and can I easily navigate my way through this mass of merchandise? And it's the exact same thing that triggers those brain responses in physical places as are found in the two-dimensional representation of those brands, even throughout the internet.
Right.
So that means that I've gone and had to navigate some government websites recently. And I'm thinking, what is it about government websites or large corporate, experiences online that are seemingly like they've forgotten that people have to look at this content and know where to go? When it's probably the first time they've ever done that before.
Right.
And how can you provide those visual cues and a design, even in a two-dimensional way, that allows people to understand what the core messaging is, really who you are and what you're about, why you're selling it, what you believe in, and how to easily find what you want to find. That's what drives click-throughs, right? I mean, if people are trying to find their way through a website, you can get frustrated pretty quickly. And there's nothing, whether it's right, and then boom, you're done. I mean, okay, I'll go somewhere else. But I think there are those kinds of things, and the way you read that visual content is very similar to the way you'd read it in any physical environment. So those are some simple things.
That's great advice for everybody paying attention. So can you believe it's 5:34 already? I let us go over because we had technical difficulties. I told you this was going to fly. The half hour is like, poof, it's done. But what we're going to do is a quick lightning round because we like to do this anyway. So we'll ask a few quick questions. And then you and I will continue our conversation. We're going to post this also on our blog at lifestyles.net. So if you're just bouncing in and you missed the front part of this video, don't worry, you'll be able to see it online as well, along with some of David's great work from his history. So before we get into lightning round, just quick, give us the plug also, because I know you're starting a whole new venture. So tell us, briefly about what you're up to.
Right. So the new venture, it's exciting. So I've opened a design consultancy, brand experience design consultancy, strategy and design called Next Level Experience Design. That's a lot of fun. And as a part of that experience, we're also launching a podcast in July called the Next Level Experience Podcast. And it's daring and different dialogues on data, which is design, architecture, technology, and the arts. And so it can be all kinds of different disciplines from within each one of those disciplines, from chefs to technologists to musicians to designers and architects. It'll be a lot of fun. So I'm in the process of interviewing and learning how to use the big ass mic.
The mega mic.
I look very professional. At least I feel very professional.
You do. I know. It's impressive. You're getting lots of hearts that are floating up right now. So good.
Yeah. The mic is very important.
For sure. And is the website up yet?
Not yet. That's fine, but people can follow me on Instagram, David Kepron on Instagram or Twitter. That's those are places to go, or LinkedIn. Those are the places
perfect.
I'm.
So we're going to be excited about that. All right. So ready for lightning round? This takes about a minute. It's painless, but it's fun. All right.
Sitting back.
Okay, sit back.
Dog.
Sorry, the dog again. You hear her?
That's the dog.
I'm very excited. I'm going to shut the door before we do lightning round. I'll be right back.
See, folks, it's great because I started this session, with technical difficulties. And,
Okay, I'm back.
I wouldn't call it dog technical difficulties, but it's good.
Exactly, the doggy technical difficulties. Okay, so your background is in retail. If you had to pick your favorite store, like who did it best, who's the genius retailer, what store did it?
It's too easy to say Apple.
Okay, listen, I didn't have anyone in mind, but that's a great answer.
Yeah, that would be one.
You're sort of channeling your inner Steve Jobs today anyway.
I'm going to sit here
I know, I see it with the black. You're just missing a turtleneck, but yes, you totally got it. So that's a good one. All right. When you're allowed to go out and really start to travel again, because I know you're a travel bug as well, what's the first place you're going to go?
I've been telling my boys we need to go back to Bangkok.
Have they been already or no?
No, they've never been. I lived in Singapore for a while, and I've been to Bangkok a number of times, and it's so rich. Or India. Mumbai is amazing.
I have not been to India. That is on my hit list.
You would love India. You would love the colors,
sure.
the
colors, the textiles. I know. I'm dying to go also. All right. Do you have a book that you would recommend? I know your book, so let's talk about that for one more second again. That's Retail Revolution.
Yep.
Okay.
Why creating right brain stores will shape the future of shopping in a digitally driven world. That's a long subtitle, but it pulls it all together.
Okay, so that's that. But tell me, what are the books, if you had a book that you think wow, that really had an impact on my career, or this is, if I was mentoring someone, this is the book I would tell you to read.
Yeah, I just read a great book by Ed Catmull, who was one of the founders of Pixar. And it's a fabulous story about what Pixar is about, what the culture is about, and how fostering a culture of creativity, openness, is really what helped drive them into being, I think, the best animation company in the world. Of course, it's called Creativity Inc.
Creativity Inc. Okay, that's a good one. I like it.
Yeah,
and have you binge watching anything?
Binge watching? No, except for MSNBC, if you want to call that binge watching.
That has its moments anyway. You need to drink watch that.
Yeah, that's my binge watching world. Although, I could binge watch Game of Thrones, which I have done. I probably have watched all seasons at least 3 or 4 times now. So
yeah, that was definitely a good series to get in on. We just watched. I binged it with my daughter, who's 10. Space Force with Steve Carell. Anybody else hear of that one? It's on Netflix. I guess it's a new one. It's cute. instead of like Air Force and Marines, he's now in charge of Space Force, and he's very Steve Carell. So I'm getting hearts on that one. So
he's hysterical.
yeah, so it's cute. It touches on some heartfelt moments, but definitely the underlying comedy in it too. So that was a good one as well. And again, so we can find you, like you said, on Instagram, on Twitter, and it's David Kepron.
David Kepron, yeah, simple, straight up.
Okay, and your book is on Amazon, Retail Revolution.
Yeah.
And it's a good one. I think I have a signed copy from my color marketing days. So I know. Well, thank you again for joining me on Design Uncensored.